Very good. So our first order of business is the roll call. Ken,
Here.
Chris, David Bryan,
Here.
David Nakandri,
Present.
Whitney.
Here.
Oh, very good. So the second order of business is the approval of the agenda. Does everybody have a copy of that? Are there any additions to note or?
I'll move the adoption. You gotta flip it the other. There you go.
There's an approval to adopt. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Next order of business is approval of.
Chair, if I could, you do still need to take the vote and call for the affirmatives and for the
Oh,
nays.
oh, okay. So all those in favor, please signal by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Hearing none. So we're off and running. Approval of the meeting minutes.
I move for approval.
Thank you.
Second.
Very good. All those in favor, signal by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Very good. Nobody's from the public is registered to comment. So I guess the next order of business is to welcome Whitney Goodby, City of Lacey representative, and she's not a Whitney. Would you like to introduce yourself to the board?
Hi, I'm Whitney Godby, and I'm happy to be on this team.
Very good. Okay, thanks, Whitney. Alex, you're up next.
I'm Alex Turcott. If we haven't met, I'm the senior accountant here at the city. I'll keep it short and sweet since the financial report is pretty straightforward. So for the period of January 1st through December 31st, 2023, revenues totaled 2.64 million. This is comprised of 2.62 million in sales tax revenue from the state, 11,200 in interest earned, and reimbursements of 10,725. And those reimbursements are for the annual insurance, and then we had a couple of state auditors office invoices. Expenditures and distributions totaled 2.64 million. 1.88 million was retained by the city of Lacey. 740,000 was distributed to the city of Olympia. And then again, the 10,725 in expenditures for that, the insurance and state auditor's office invoices. And those are reimbursed by us, the city of Lacey, and the city of Olympia. That's it.
I couldn't find my last year's documents. How does the revenue compare to last year? The previous year?
That's
Just
a good
roughly.
question. Let me
Up,
get that
down?
pulled up really quickly.
I looked and can't remember.
Yeah.
I can't
Just
remember either. A whole year has passed. Just 1 second. Up slightly. Last year was around 2.61 million.
It's a good trend.
Very good.
I would move that we approve the financial report.
Second.
Very good. All those in favor? Aye.
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 Opposed? Thank you. Interlocal agreement extension update, Troy.
Good afternoon, everyone. Troy Wheel. Good to see you. I'm Troy Wheel, Finance Director for the city. Of course, the city of Lacey handles the majority of the administration for this district. So I have good news, especially for Ken. Ken, you have an opportunity to serve another 15 years on this board. I know you've been here since the very beginning.
Yeah.
That's all to say that we do have an extension to the interlocal agreement that will add another 15 years to the district. The 4 partners signed last December. There's no changes to the most of the provisions of the interlocal agreement. So it's the same 2 projects, the hands-on children's museum, as well as the regional athletic complex. The tax rate stays the same. That's 0.033%. That is a credit against the state portion of sales tax. So it's not an additional sales tax on any of the residents here in Thurston County. The same distribution between Lacey and Olympia. It's about 71% for Lacey, 29% for Olympia. Like I said, the same original facilities. The only requirement that's left to satisfy is to make sure that there is still debt outstanding on both of the projects. Both Olympia and Lacey plan on issuing debt to make sure that continues. For Lacey, our timeline is to issue debt or start the process in the early part of 2027. That way funding will be available during the summer construction season of 27. We are in the very initial stages of design for the RAC Phase 3. Sue, during her presentation, will have the exciting details on this in terms of what the concept is for that expansion of the RAC. So I certainly don't want to steal any of Sue's thunder, but again, good news, we have another 15 years. We plan to put the money to good use and expand both of these very important facilities within Thurston County.
That's really good news.
So there's any questions?
I'm concerned, or actually more properly said, not knowledgeable of, just another way of saying ignorant, of how projects get added. Sometimes I'm under the impression that it requires a legislative action to create either new set aside set aside from the tax, or so anyway, bottom line, how do other projects get added, such as, for example, one in Tumwater or another project in Lacey, for example?
Sure. Good question. So this particular district is limited to the 2 original projects.
And that's because of a statutory provision?
Well, it was when it was identified and developed, and that's the interlocal agreement. So
So it's the interlocal agreement that specifies the parameter, not some action of the legislature.
right. Well, I mean, it's RCW that provides us the guidelines that the original projects must carry through the life of the district.
Okay.
There is relatively new legislation that will allow for an additional public facility district, and that's how another city or the county in this instance could partner and develop a new public facility district.
Okay, I think that's the answer. So for there to be another project, you'd need, in effect, a new district authority to manage that. So this board is, until at such time as the interlocal agreement changed, is simply to oversee the distribution and allocation of funds to the 2 designated
That's
projects.
correct.
Okay,
Yeah, it's my understanding it would be a separate district, separate board. I'm not familiar with all the requirements, but you do need at least 2 regional partners. So like I said, a Tumwater in the county, or I mean, any of the cities could actually do that.
one last question then. In your familiarity with the public facility district statute, empowerment statute, has there ever been a jurisdiction or a second district created that you're familiar with?
Not sure.
Anywhere in the state?
I don't believe so. It's relatively new. And I'm not even aware of when the last new public facility district was established, but it's been pretty stable in terms of new districts, so there hasn't been a lot of activity.
And Troy, I'll just add one tidbit. Hi, Jen Burbage, Director of Parks, Culture, Recreation. One thing, Troy mentioned pretty much everything I know about the second PFD, with one addition is that it would be a new sales tax. So not the state share reduced like the first one.
So the legislature would have to enact a new sales tax against which you could reserve some revenue for a new project?
Believe it'd be voter approved,
Voter approved
and it would be an additional tax, which is different than ours, which is a credit against
against,
the existing sales tax. So it'd be a new tax.
And any other questions for Troy? Well, thank you.
Great, thank you.
John, one thing I'd like to add to the minutes, I'm a little bit out of order, but for the financial, I usually report that I reviewed the financials, including all the notes. I balanced all the numbers back and everything looked, to my knowledge, everything looked good. So I like to report that I did that effort for our minutes.
Okay. So the got it covered? Okay, thank
We've
you.
got that noted and indicated.
Thanks. Patty Belmonte. Okay,
I am going to be Patty's voice.
okay.
It is, it's been time.
Once I'll figure out how to use PDF here to make it full screen. I'll let you all drive. So I'm gonna hand this over to you and you can advance all the slides.
Okay, that's great. Thank you. Well, hello, I'm Patty's voice today. I am Marina Shaughnessy. I'm the grants manager with the Hands-On Children's Museum, and I've worked with the museum for about 10 years. And I am typically a behind the scenes person, but today I get to be an in front of the scenes person. So I'm very happy to be here and walk through this with Patty, and so she can whisper in my ear if I'm forgetting anything important. Oh, there we go. That's the first one, right? Okay, so this is just sort of setting the stage. Hands-On has now been in our new home, which is not such a new home. It's amazing that it's been about 13 years. We are now, well, since we opened the new facility, we've been the most visited youth museum in the Pacific Northwest, which is pretty amazing in our geographic area. We see more visitors per square foot than any of the nation's 470 children's museums. That means we're a little overcrowded sometimes, which we'll get to in a little bit. We're a nationwide leader in access, serving about 140,000 access program visitors each year. That's with 30 different access programs, including, I think, things that we're going to talk a little bit more about later, but basically free and reduced fee programs. We're a consistent Best of award winner, as you can see below, lots of different places. People love coming to Hands-On. Whoops. Oh boy, you guys are gonna have to bear with me. It's very, very touchy. Okay, since Patty reported out last year, we have a lot of good things to add. We've made some great progress in the last year. We are now recovered from pre-pandemic levels, which is really, really great. So we're seeing a return to what we saw pre-pandemic, almost. We expect to see 300,000 visitors by the end of the year, at least. Even with overall recovery, we've attracted more out-of-town visitors. So for the past 4 years in a row, about 18% of the visitors that come to see the museum are from 50 miles or more away. Let's see if I can do it. This last year, we saw the highest number of unique zip codes. So at our front desk, we can do like zip code capture so we know where people are coming from. And so while the Washington state has about 719 unique zip codes, we saw 2,497 unique zip codes among our visitors in the last year. The top 5 states, as you can see, are Oregon, California, Texas, Florida, and Colorado. And the top 3 countries are Canada, United Kingdom and Germany, but we saw visitors from, I think, 18 different countries this last year, and 3 US territories, so from all over the place. The top web users outside of Thurston County, so the people who are checking out our website, are from Seattle, Tacoma, San Jose, Portland, Los Angeles, and Vancouver, Washington. Blippi, I don't know if any of you have young preschoolers in your life, but Blippi is quite a phenomenon, and it's on YouTube, and he is a YouTube sensation for little ones. We hear from lots of people that they visit the museum because their kids are in love with Blippi. And so last year, I can't actually read that because of where that is, but basically last year, I think Hands On was featured in 13 different Blippi videos with over 200 million views. And now we're featured in 31 Blippi videos with 592 million views. And I challenge you to watch this. You can't. I haven't made it through more than about 15 seconds, but it's lovely if you're a preschool kid. Okay. One of the ways that Hands On attracts visitors, especially from outside the area, is to feature special programming at the museum. So we have, like, this first one featured here is the falconer, who brings in live birds for kids to interact with. There's acrobats, aerial acrobats. There's the taiko drummers from Seattle that came last summer. We have the Burke Museum that came. We also feature visiting artists, both local and more regional. So we have Mimi Williams, the printmaker who used to be a teacher in town, and she's wonderful. And kids this last summer got to learn Sumi calligraphy, like a Japanese calligraphy from another local artist. We have special events, and we know that these events also draw a big out of town visitation. Events like the Fire Rescue Spectacular, because kids love emergency vehicles. Boo Bash, our Halloween event, is not just a one-day event, but it goes over it's a 7-day event. It used to be a 2-day, one-day event. Used to be a one-day event and has moved to a 7-day event, kind of because of overcrowding and all of that, to try to spread it out and encourage people to stay for longer. And then the New Year's event that we host each year, as opposed to New Year's Eve. It's a daytime thing. One of the things we do is we monitor social media a lot to hear what people are saying about the museum. And one of the things we hear a lot is not that just people like playing at the museum, of course they like doing that, but there's a lot of learning that's happening with the playing. So as this visitor from Paris this last summer said, early learning play at its best. Such a wonderful experience. The staff are so kind and friendly. The exhibits are well thought out and stunning. The maker space art area is large and airy. We went 3 times during our trip. Our 3-year-old loved it so much. Overall, highly recommend. Overall, we hear just a lot about the quality of the experience and the quality of the facility that we offer for guests. And we do see a lot of visitors coming up from the greater Portland, Oregon area. Because their children's museum, which had been around a really long time, closed permanently during the pandemic. And so we've seen an increase in folks coming from the greater Portland area in the last few years. We have been to a lot of children's museums, so don't take it lightly when I say at Hands On Children's Museum in Olympia, Washington is our favorite. We've been making the trek up to Ole for years. With so many interactive exhibits, we always want to stay and play for hours. Another Oregon visitor. One thing that we hear is that for families that are spread across, my watch talking to me, sorry about that. That families who are spread across the West Coast or maybe in Seattle and the Portland area, that Hands On is a really good meeting spot for families to get together for family reunions or just the weekend. This visitor from Damascus, Oregon said, I had the pleasure of meeting with family to check out at Hands On Children's Museum during Sunday Fun Day. And as a 40-something, I can tell you that I had a blast. It was way cool for people of all ages. We're also seeing a resurgence in our Canadian visitors, which is really great. Right after the pandemic, crossing over the border and that international travel was really tough. And so we're glad to see folks coming back. This visitor from British Columbia said, "This was such a fun stop on our family vacation. Our 4-year-old loved everything from imaginative play, crafts, outside activities, the slide, and even our newly 1-year-old safely explored." The other thing that's pretty exciting for us is that hands-on is often compared to with institutions, museums with much larger budgets. So this quote in particular here refers to OMSI, the Oregon Museum of Science and Industry, which has an operating budget of 24 million, and hands-on has a budget of 5.2 million. And this visitor from Vancouver said, "This place was amazing and the best children's museum we have ever been to. We were at OMSI last weekend and it blows OMSI out of the water. No competition, so well run, so much fun. I saw kids from 1 to 12 years old all having a blast." Yeah. Yes. So Patty's saying, they're our colleague. We respect OMSI. We're not trying to put OMSI down in any way, but it was a nice compliment to us. So, all respect to OMSI. A special honor for our work. Okay, so this is, I'm not sure if you're familiar with the work that the Children's Museum has been doing with the Department of Corrections, but we have been working in various ways with them over the past 10 years, really. But notably, in the last couple of years, we've been working with them to redesign 3 of their family visitation rooms. So for incarcerated parents who are being visited by their kids, the rooms in the past have historically been blank rooms, basically with a television and nothing very interesting. And so you weren't seeing kids and their parents being able to interact in a very engaging way. And there's, we have worked with the DOC to redesign 3 of these family meeting rooms. And you can see that the picture on the bottom there is from the redesigned family visitation room at the Washington Corrections Center for Women. And basically there's lots of fun stuff for people to do with their kids when they're there. And we just got and so that's a really exciting project and one of many things that we do with the Department of Corrections to improve outcomes for children who have incarcerated parents and their families. We just got a big honor this year where we won an Institute of Museum and Library Services National Leadership Grant, where we are working with a few other museums, cohort members from across the country who are working in various ways with the incarcerated population and their kids. So we're kind of on the leading edge of this and it's very exciting. Congresswoman Strickland, in part because of this, has nominated us for a national medal for our work in this area. And we will find out about that next summer. So while we draw people from all over the country and the world to come visit the facility, we also are really concerned with providing local families with access, especially low-income families and people who might not otherwise have access. So we're really committed. We're a museum for all. And we have 30 different free and reduced fee programs, like I mentioned. Our largest one is EBT, Family Access. And so if a family has an EBT card or a WIC card, they can get $3 per person admission to the museum any day throughout the year. This program has grown exponentially since we started it in 2017. You can see we started in that first year with just 12,527, and in 2023 we had 38,422. So this is meeting a real need in the community and making sure that folks have access to the unique learning and play-based fun that we have at the facility. Because planning for our future mid-size museum with king-size attendance. So overcrowding has been one of the bigger issues at the museum and biggest complaints of people who come to visit. And so since 2017, we have tried to do a variety of things to make it so it isn't quite so overcrowded. We've extended hours, so opened an hour earlier at 9 o'clock in the morning. We've added multi-day events like Boo Bash so that we're not, making it a 7-day event as opposed to a 1-day event to try to spread that out a little bit more. We've sold timed tickets, trying to get people in at certain times. We promoted after hours parties and field trips. And we're open 7 days a week. Because we still haven't. Yeah, and we still don't have enough room. That's Okay. Hands-on has less square footage than any comparable museum serving 300,000 plus visitors. And this just provides you with a little perspective about what you might see at other institutions across the country that serve even close to the same amount that we do in terms of the amount of square footage they have. So you can see like Madison Children's Museum serves 250,000 people and has 56,000 square feet to our 28,000 square feet. Or you even have the Cole Museum in Chicago's 340,000 annual visitors with 46,000 square feet. So they're a little bit bigger, but have quite a bit more space. And this leads right into the museum's plan for expansion, a campus approach. I'm trying to remember what this is. Yeah. Yes, so that's what we're looking at in terms of the existing facility. Patty, you want to post? So that's the existing facility and the expand. Yep, with the Outdoor Discovery Center. And that is the expansion project, which will double the square footage of the Children's Museum. And we'll add a new outdoor space also, which helps diffuse visitors over a greater area. The two buildings will be connected by not a tunnel, but like a bridge. Yeah, like a sky bridge kind of thing. And then we're gonna be adding new parking spots also.
So it's the whole block.
So yeah, that's the whole block. So it's building on the port property that is adjacent to the current facility. Yes, so those are the items that we're gonna be adding. So new parking spots, bus loading, flexible event space. As many of you know, there's a real need for event space in the area. And so this event space will do double duty. It can be rented out as private event space, but it can also serve as a traveling exhibit gallery, which we desperately need. So at certain times we could be featuring new programming, which we know draws visitation rather than adding new permanent exhibits all the time, that we can bring in exciting traveling exhibits to draw visitation. We'll be adding a new culinary classroom, which we've been offering some culinary programming that's really exciting and been really well received. So kids cooking classes and that sort of thing. Additional preschool daycare classrooms and a new entry plaza to reduce overcrowding and promote safety.
So you have 28,000. Oh, there you go.
Yeah, here we go. Anticipated, yes. So. So we have 28,000 now, and the new addition will be between 30,000 and 35,000. And brings us within, so the additional square footage brings us within best practices of visitors per square foot. We conducted a design feasibility study, which confirmed the $35 million campaign size. You can see the new building, like we were just discussing, it's going to be just over 63,000 square feet of space, and you can get a sense for what that might look like there with the rendering. The new traveling exhibit gallery and event space for 250 plus visitors with the outdoor space, so it'll offer a lot more capacity for many different kinds of private events and the traveling exhibits. Oh boy, I think that might have gone. Oh, that was right. Okay. And this is our preliminary 4-year expansion timeline. With basically getting started, we have the consultant preparing for the progressive design build application now. And we have the progressive design build team selected in the next year with pre-construction planning and design, with construction beginning in 2026 and grand opening in late 2027. Best case scenario. That's important. All right. Yes.
Progressive design, is that a term of art or the name of a firm? I'm not familiar with that usage.
It's a state program
Oh,
that allows you, it's the most cost-effective way to build
okay.
because you can change on the spot instead of doing a low bid process. You're hiring a whole team from the beginning.
That used to just be called design build, but I guess they just added on.
There still is design build, and this is one step they've added to it, progressive design.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay,
Great.
thank you.
I'll take that up now. Thank you.
Is your presentation available as a handout to the board?
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's also available in the packets that are in front of you as a PDF, and that's available online for anybody to access as well. So you can get it through our website and public meetings, and you can open it up there as well.
So I have one more question. So just out of curiosity, what was your square, before you moved into the 28,000, what was the square footage you had? 10,000. Okay, 10,000.
We started.
Yeah, over there by the Capitol.
Downtown.
Downtown.
Oh, that's right.
historic.
Yeah, yeah, okay.
Then we moved to Capital 5,
Yeah,
then we expanded at the Capital 10.
yeah, okay.
We went to
And we've
28.
always had overcrowding because of the job you guys do.
We've been conservative.
Good job.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Sue Belash. I'm the recreation manager for the city of Lacey. I'm here to give you a kind of overview of the regional athletic complex. So we were basically going from indoor recreation to outdoor recreation. Great facility. It's used at least 350 days out of the year. We have tournaments going in there all weekend long. Every weekend of the year, we have something going on. So a quick little overview. The next few slides are going to talk about some of our league and tournament play. We have increased, we're in the same position as Hands-On Children Museum. We have finally gotten past the pandemic. And now last year we surpassed it, and this year we're even surpassing it even more than we were then. We had 237 shelter reservations. There's 4 different shelters out of the regional athletic complex. The biggest problem we have with the shelters is we have so much going on within the park that there are days that we actually have to limit we're not opening up reservations because there's nowhere for these folks to park. So it's a good problem to have. It's very used and it's very well liked. It was used 349 days last year, and we keep increasing. We had 79 unique user groups. So that's different organizations that were using our complex, whether it be for practices, for games, or for tournaments. We keep increasing that number. We're limiting on space at the baseball complex, but the soccer field is continuing to fill up as well. This is just kind of a fun little snapshot of the different, instead of listing the different users that we have. And just another fun note to look at kind of the amount of hours, and this is only the hours on the actual baseball, on softball, soccer fields. It's not including the time that we have set out aside for the shelters. It's not including our park rentals or just the general place. So we've continued to go up. 2019 was that at one point was our highest, and we continue to go up. So we've booked over 11,000 hours of use on those athletic fields. So that's kind of exciting to see. These are some of the user groups we have, people coming out. We have Lake Fair, just some fun pictures, Lake Fair volleyball tournament. We did a cross-country class or program for kids this year, and we held it out at the rack, and that was very popular. Ultimate Frisbee is always great, and the youth, the fast pitch teams are always having fun. I'm going the wrong way now. That's another kind of quick look. We also added, there was a lot of flag football that went on last year for the youth. We had a bus rodeo, soccer. This was one of our fun runs. We have a lot of lacrosse going on. This is very tight, guys. I don't like it. We should have somebody else do this for me. These are some of the few special events that were held out at the regional athletic complex. We had 2 different fun runs. We had the bus rodeo, which is always fun to watch. They do it during the middle of the week. They set up their cones and the different bus companies come in and they have to do all these tricks and get voted on how they're doing. And so that's always fun to watch. Polyfest started right before COVID and it's back. We're hoping to expand it to 2 days next year. It's been a really fun event to have out there. We've been the start for the Reach the Beach race for quite some time. The Juneteenth celebration has gotten really big, and I wanted to highlight also, we held for the last 2 years, the USSSA Fast Pitch Nationals, which brings kids in from all over the country to play fast pitch, ages 10U up to 18U. So that was a great event. I think she had over 79 teams from all around the country for that.
Sorry, what is Polyfest?
Polynesian Festival. They call it Polyfest. So they have food vendors, they have activities, they have dancing. It's just a huge festival that's centered around the Polynesian culture. These numbers were sent to us in the first of this year from the Experience Olympian Beyond. We work with them to do a lot of the economic impact, and they're doing a lot of geofencing for a lot of our different events. They had us for 2023 at around $14 million. I just kind of broke it in. I didn't have all the events listed out this time because there was just too many to list. So we had a little under 4 million for January through March, a little over 4 million for April through June for 15 events. From June to August, which is our summer months, we had a little over 5 million, and that was for 14 events. And then obviously September through December, even though we had 10 events, we still had over 1.2 million in anticipated economic impact.
So those are like hotel stays?
Hotel stays and food, lodging, purchases throughout the community or the county while they're here. Some of the things that we wanted to highlight that we did to improve the facility. We did convert the parking lot lights to LED, which was completed in June of 2023. We're hoping to be able to eventually get the softball complex and the soccer field converted over to LED as well. But right now, at least we've got the parking lot lights, and that was done. We have a new parking lot. I wish we had an aerial picture, but we don't have one yet. But we were able to add 315 new stalls. There'll be 8 handicapped. There's 8 new bus stalls, and there is 6 EV charging stations. This is kind of a side view so you can kind of get an idea going from that gravel piece of property. It's a beautiful addition to the complex, and it's highly used, and everybody is extremely happy that they're not going through potholes and everything else anymore, that they've actually got a nice place to park, be safe. It has lights and everything, so. Phase 3, we don't have quite as far along design as these guys have. We have phase 3. Phase 3 is the property that is adjacent to the rack. If you're familiar with where Nisqually Middle School is, it's one that's right across the street. It's on that corner. For the phase 3 development, one of the things that our staff has looked at is recommending fast pitch, softball, and baseball as the #1 priority for the space due to the number of local user groups that are in constant demand, and we are still turning people away or groups away if they're wanting to run tournaments every year. An environmental assessment will be underway here soon as possible to determine how much space is potential to develop for recreation and what mitigation needs to be done. The next steps are hire a landscape architect to get some conceptual plans underway. We do have some oak trees and we have some gophers that we're having to go through and look to see how much of this space right here we can actually develop.
What kind of gophers?
Pocket gophers.
Oh, those guys.
The
I thought they
fun,
were
the fun
just
ones.
Tumwater.
Oh, no, they travel. Tumwater got rid of them and now they're at our place. This is a side view or just a ground view of the property. We are currently mowing it. But that's about where we are at with that.
Can we ask a couple questions?
You sure can, anytime.
So if you show that picture, so on the parks, the other one back that
Sorry.
shows both.
There,
That.
yeah.
So the fields that we're using in the current rack, will you have tournaments just further down the road and you develop phase 3? Will you have tournaments that use fields on both sides in the same tournament?
Yes.
So are we still considering or not considering anymore how to get from one to the other? Like we talked about over the road bridge walkway, but are we still talking about that or is that off?
Yeah, I can take this one. Yeah, certainly a consideration. And so,
All you need
we're-
is money, right?
we're looking at, yes, we're looking at grade safety, crossing. in the beginning, and then, but with the concept plan and then moving into design is making sure that there's space for a future.
Yeah, I mean, that's a pretty
Connection.
busy road, so trying to cross that is,
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yep, thanks.
and when you've got kids running around with the games, I'd see it's pretty dangerous, but
You know, and one concept, and we do it currently, and we'll be able to do it there, is when you've got some of these tournaments, whether it be baseball or softball, and you have the different age groups, it might be you're gonna have, you know, one age group out over on this one, and you're gonna have the older age group, so that you're not having to switch back and forth, so.
so as much as you can manage that, you can manage that. But at least we'll have the option that at some future day we possibly could do that.
Hopefully, yes, that would be great. There we go. Our phase 3 timeline with the PFD extension. For RAC phase 3 timeline, we're hoping to have design completed in 2025 through 26. In 2026, potentially applying for the RCO funding, which would be awarded in the fall of 26 if successful. Early in 2027, we'll begin the bond issue process. Mid 2027, the construction will start with hopefully and then with the current debt will expire December 2027. So we've still got a few years down the road, but we're moving very quickly on it. Yes,
What's RCO stand for?
Recreation Conservation Office.
Is that the old interagency on outdoor
To be,
recreation?
yeah, it used to be called that. Yep, it's the Washington State Recreation Conservation Office.
Can I have a couple other questions?
You can have to, that's our next slide is questions. You can
Okay.
ask all you want.
So given the difficulty Little League's had with the fields out by the airport, how does that factor into your current operations or plans for the enhanced expansion?
Well, that was one of the reasons why staff is recommending the baseball softball fields is because there is such a demand for them. I know that the Capital Little League has got a little bit of a breathing room right now, but we have met with her quite a few times and looked at how can we, within not just the RAC, but within the city and the school district fields, how can we help absorb some of their overflow? If and when they get to the point where they are going to be permanently, if they are going to ever be permanently out of the port.
Okay, do any of the local high schools use the RAC for their ongoing interscholastic competitions?
North Thurston, all of the high schools, we are especially we're in the lovely Northwest. When they have a rain out, we are the first place they go to help because we don't rain out like they do because our fields don't get the muddy and if it's a downpour like we've had lately, obviously you're not gonna be able to play. But they're there quite a bit. Northwest Christian, we are their home field. Even places, Rainier High School comes and plays their games there. Tenino plays their games there for baseball. We use St. Martin's actually practices and does stuff out there for soccer. The South Puget Sound Community College does all of their soccer games out at the Regional Athletic Complex. We are currently housing, while they're doing the construction at River Ridge, their football has been doing all their practices, their soccer's been doing their practices and their games. So we are literally a regional facility and they are coming in from everywhere to utilize our space.
It looked like from the overhead aerial view that some of the baseball fields are bigger than others.
One of them is a full-size baseball field.
Define that for me, please.
Um,
What's the center field dimension?
Gosh, that's a really good question. It's gotta, I don't know. The other ones are all 300. The baseball field has there's three different. Yes, but it's a regulation baseball field. The colleges play there on a regular basis.
So 390 or 400
I think it's 425 is the center.
I think it is too.
I think it is 425. What we have done to help accommodate some of the needs is we've put in more different base pegs because we don't have, once you get through the 90, we don't have a lot of 80-foot bases for some of these leagues. So we have different base pegs so that we can shrink that one slightly and still be able to play. And amazingly enough, even though it is a permanent, we still have softball. If we've got an overflow, they'll just put a rubber mat down and they'll play softball out there.
Can you, this might be a question better directed to Jen, but you have the floor now.
Oh, she can answer them.
Is there any current ongoing discussion regarding summer collegiate baseball league or even more grandiosely minor league baseball?
Yes, excuse me, there would be hope that with a collegiate sized field, that there would be an opportunity for that on the rec phase 3.
That would have to be a part of the expanded
Mhm.
facility though.
Yep.
That would need to include like a press box or concession stand as well,
And more seating.
more seating.
And one of the things that they had come in a number of years ago and looked at rec phase, or not rec phase, but field 5. And one of the problems that we had with doing it on the current one is we have no way to isolate because they want to sell tickets.
Yes.
And that current complex is not set up to isolate a field. We can isolate the entire complex and have people pay to come in like they do for WIAA, because we host the fast pitch state tournaments there. We hold the district tournaments for both fast pitch and baseball there. But we can't isolate that one field.
Is that something you're thinking of doing with the enhanced facility?
Potentially. And we'll, with the concepts, early concepts, we'll be able to get the rough order of magnitude of what the costs would be and, looking at phasing if there's not enough funding in the beginning.
Thank you.
So in the early days of the RAC, wasn't there a relationship between the Tacoma Rainiers was using this as their?
No.
Oh, is that right? Okay, I know that was a concept.
Matt Acker ran a kind of a collegiate league out of there in the summer in June. I think it was, I don't know if it was a wood bat or not. And those were kind of, they weren't the Rainiers level. It was kind of a couple levels down where kids that were in their college would come and they play and they would travel out the different places. I wish the Rainiers were down there and giving us money to do this, but.
I think that it sounds like it never really evolved from the concept phase, because I know when that was first designed, that.
Yeah, it may not have.
It was referred to as a semi-pro field.
So we've never, ever in this county had enough ball fields for all the kids. And we're always trying to catch up, and we're still always trying to catch up. Is there any other property that you have your hands on or can get your hands on for future expansions? Or is this it?
We do have, in our Parks Capital Improvement Program, identified at Meridian Park in Northeast Lacey. That is a location that, in the current master plan, which was done quite a few years ago, it does have a full-size soccer field with 2, youth baseball fields overlaid. And it is a huge need in Northeast Lacey. You've got, families traveling across town where they could have a closer facility. There's, as you know, lots of
So we're still
population in
trying to
Northeast
catch
Lacey.
up, but we're making progress.
And I think you threw us a really good softball there for the next conversation too, which is about kind of our looking towards the future and park funding generally. And those are all the conversations that
Yes.
we're working through right now of how do we go through our capital facilities plan? How do we identify priorities? I know Jenny's gonna speak to that in the next presentation.
Oh, good, good. Then I won't ask that question.
So is there any more questions for me?
Good
before we
job.
Pass it
Yeah,
on
this
to
is
Jenny.
great. Wish we had these when I was coaching.
Jenny will need to stop now. Thank you.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm Jenny Wilson. I'm a senior parks planner in the Parks Culture and Branding Department. And I'm not going to be using the mouse because it seems to be really touchy. So I'm here to talk to you a little bit about the Parks Improvement Funding Work Group, which is a work group that is an ad hoc committee that was formed by the Lacey City Council, and it was formed in June of this year. So the work group was adopted through a resolution with the city council. It has a few goals. So they are supposed to review the project identified in the 6-year Parks Capital Improvement Program. I'll refer to that as our PCIP. They're supposed to create a prioritized list of the parks capital projects and analyze funding options, and then come up with a recommendation to the city council that will include a funding package, identifying funding sources, including recommended amounts. So they're really helping us identify sustainable funding for future parks improvements to balance our aging infrastructure and growing population. That kind of speaks to what we were talking about. We're really grateful for this group. They have a wide range of backgrounds and perspectives that are helping to shape the future of our parks. So here's a timeline for the group. The work group was formed by council in June, as I mentioned. August is when they were appointed to the city council. August is when we had our first meeting, middle of August. Since then, we've been hard at work, having about 2 meetings a month, learning and working with them. And then they're supposed to have a final recommendation during the month of December to city council, meeting all those objectives that I just mentioned. The city council really wanted a diverse representation of the community. And so there's 9 voting members on the committee and 6 ex officio members. So it's a pretty big group of 15 people. They have diverse backgrounds, really qualified candidates, and they're really engaged, asking great questions. So it's been a very interesting ad hoc or work group. And this is just so you can see what their projects that they're going to be prioritizing and looking at. This is the list of our PCIP projects that are our new projects. So one of their main functions, as I mentioned, is to prioritize the projects. And this is a list of projects that's in our comprehensive plan, our Parks, Culture, and Recreation Comprehensive Plan. And it's really our department's guiding documents. So this is a list that they'll be prioritizing. These are the new projects. The RAC Phase 3 is not, it's in our comp plan and it is part of our list. It's not in here because the work group is not prioritizing it because there's already funding identified for that project. So just so you know, it's not listed, but it is.
So is that a priority? Are they in priority order or just?
No, this is just alphabetized order because they're supposed to come up with a priority.
Okay.
And you'll see I'll chime in real quick, the project that I mentioned, Meridian Park.
Yeah, Meridian Park, the sports field, that's on there
Yep.
as one of the projects. And that would be sports fields that are desperately needed. And then this is the list of the replacement projects. So we kind of have them split out by new and replacement. And that's how we've been showing them to the group. So as you can see, there's several projects that are at the RAC for the group to consider. And just to narrow it down a little bit more, all the projects that we have on the replacement list for the RAC total about a little over $4.4 million. And so, yeah, LED light replacement, playground replacements. We have a lot of projects coming up at the RAC for them to consider too as part of that prioritization. So the work group's role in identifying stable funding for parks in general could also be used to benefit projects at the RAC for the long term.
I didn't see my pedestrian bridge on it.
That's part of the RAC Phase 3.
Phase 4.
Right. Maybe Phase 4.
So can you share the names of those 9 voting members?
Oh, I sure can. The 9 voting members are Mark Brown, Kathy Cook, James Eichner, Karen Eidecker, Brooklyn McReynolds, Rachel Murata, Philip Robol, Yvette Temple, and Sherry Wilkins. And then I'll tell you who the non-voting members are too, because they're providing great input. Wendy Goodwin, she's one of our Parks Board members, or she's chair of our Parks Board actually. Jonathan Hedgewood, he is on the Commission on Equity, so that's why they're ex officio because they're serving on other boards. Lauren Howard, she's not on a board, but I believe she lives outside the city limits, but she has a really interesting background that's helpful to us. Haley Ortega, also outside the city limits, but she's had an athletic background within the school district, so she's very helpful to us. Daphne Retzlaff, she's on the Planning Commission, and then Ruth Weigelt, she's on the LTAC committee. So very interesting group.
It sounds like a good group.
It's a great group, yeah.
So as this group comes and makes their recommendations, then what happens?
Well,
Somebody has to pick priorities or somebody, I mean, they come with their recommendation, but then somebody has to decide what we're gonna do and how we're gonna get funding, where we're gonna get additional funding, those sorts of things.
That's part of what the group is working through right now, is they're taking a look at what are the funding options that are available, what would they prioritize, what would they recommend, and then taking a look at the capital projects for what they would recommend as a priority as well. And ultimately, you know, it's at council's discretion to make decisions.
Got it.
But they are gonna be creating the recommendation here pretty soon. Yep.
And I know that there are Rotary clubs in our area, probably other clubs, that would all like to do, would be willing to do something. Now, they can't come up with $4 million, but they could probably, over a period of a few years, come up with something or get something accomplished. I hope that's in the consideration and the planning process.
Yeah, yes, sponsorships, donations, that's definitely in always in our plan of working.
Okay.
In fact, we're working right now with a Rotary Club that's helping us with the replacement playground at Bush Park. So they're can't remember the total, is it $100,000 that they're giving us?
110,000, and yeah, that's the Gateway Rotary. But we also work with
And I
Hawk
think
Prairie, and we're
Prairie and
doing.
Lacey are talking about trail.
Yep.
Doing something with the trails.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah, and then I'll just note this work group is really focusing on long-term
Yeah.
sustainability
Right.
for funding. But in their other recommendations, they've discussed, like Jenny said, you know, encouraging continuation of working with local groups and seeking sponsorships and grants and
But
those sorts.
long-term happens so fast. I mean, we started this 20 years ago, Troy, 22 years, 21, 22. So look what's happened in the RAC and the Children's Museum. So this time flies. So this is good news. This is great.
We're really excited. Any other questions?
And I think too, I just want to highlight that, you know, getting to this point has been a pretty monumental task. And we've had some fantastic staff working on this from our Parks Department, from our Finance Department, our Public Works Department, our City Clerk's Office.
This is a lot of work.
Yeah, and our work group has also been doing an incredible amount of work, you know, like Jenny mentioned, having, you know, 2 meetings per week going through this really incredibly complex and dense information and, you know, coming back and providing good input and feedback and, you know, here shortly, hopefully a recommendation. So it's been a pretty incredible effort that they've done.
It's great.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. Are we okay to move to the next agenda item?
Please do.
Wonderful. I am Melissa Fontaine, Lacey City Clerk and the Administrative Liaison to this board. And I just wanted to touch base with you all and give some updates on our term expirations and future recruitments. So we do have one upcoming term expiration in March of 2025. Mr. John Grassam, our president here, has chosen not to seek reappointment.
Ooh.
So we will be looking to open up recruitment at that time, so March 2025. We also do have a current recruitment or current vacancy that we have conducted a prior recruitment, but was not successful in appointing a candidate. So Throughout that process in coordination with our other jurisdictions, we have identified some process improvements and are going to be putting those into place early next year in the springtime in order to open up both a recruitment for both vacancies and then coordinating those applications to be reviewed by members of all the jurisdictions to hopefully come up with a recommendation for appointment that all the jurisdictions can then take formal action on. And time for our next annual meeting, which we hope to hold in November. So that's kind of a brief overview of just the one upcoming expiration. And then also just the recruitments. And we'll turn it over to John too, if you have anything to add.
No.
Any questions for me? Okay.
No questions, but thank you for all the work you do.
Yeah.
Yes.
Keep-
Of course,
and
thank
Keeping us
you.
informed, yeah. thank
Yes,
you.
absolutely. All right, and I'll turn it over to President Grassam. I think there's a bit of a
Election.
conversation, yeah, before we go into the election of officers, since you are actively the president, so just as we discussed.
So, what else is there before the election of officers?
No, that's, so before we can take action on election of officers, you are the current president, but since you are not seeking reappointment,
Right.
in order to take action on that, you would want to step down and open that up for them to nominate a new president.
Okay, so it would be inappropriate for me to facilitate that? Is that what you're saying? Oh, okay,
That's okay to facilitate,
okay,
yes.
great. So next order of business is the election of officers. So, are there any nominations?
Mr. Gressel, just to confirm, are you okay with stepping down, or is that
Yes,
something you
yes.
are? Okay, just making sure that's been communicated and supported.
Probably. So how do we do that? We can't elect a second president.
So, yeah, maybe just,
Please,
to
yeah.
clarify, so basically, what Melissa's going over is that the bylaws say that your term ends when you leave the board, and our president will leave the board in March, and so just thinking proactively, if the president would step down, then we can elect a new president to fulfill the rest of their term, or we can wait till next year to host an election. However, there wouldn't be a president of the board from March to the next meeting in November. So I think the recommendation is, President, if you'd like to step down, this would be an appropriate time to do so.
Right.
And then you could still navigate the vote yourself, and host it, but we just wanna, it sounds like we got an affirmative, that you're interested in doing that.
Yes.
And proceed with
Yes.
an election.
Yes.
That was a fairly short term.
Very much so, yes. So again, is there any nominations for the office of president?
I already have a job.
Yeah, that would start with Ken.
Well, I'd like to nominate David.
I'm sorry, I can't. Doctor's orders.
Okay.
Well,
Well, who's that leave us with?
you.
That's what I was afraid of.
We just wanna maybe also just put out there that we are happy to meet with you and walk through all of the duties assigned of being president and provide support as you consider a nomination.
And basically from annual meeting to annual meeting, unless there's a crisis, and there hasn't been. But it's only, the only job of the president and the secretary treasurer has been to approve expenditures. And we do that via email, and we both approve them. And then that way we don't have to call a meeting, and we have the ability to do that. That's really about all we've been doing between meetings.
Yep, and then kind of leading into the annual meeting, I would be in contact just to review agenda items. And that's all prepared and then provided in draft form. And then any questions on the minutes or, you know, the financial report can take a look at. So it is a minimal lift for the one meeting a year, so.
Well, I would be fine to do that if the board is okay with that.
Very good. Well, then we'll go ahead and proceed with the vote for president. All those in favor?
Before we do
Sorry.
that, can I just point of
Sure.
order? I think you're gonna have to resign first if you're gonna resign, so that there's an opening.
Right.
Then we can vote in a new person.
I think I'd
Did you
You
resign?
have to do more than declare your intentions, or does that have to be something formal, or?
I believe you indicated you are resigned from the president's
Yes.
Previously, but if you want to just officially state it, and then we could check all of the boxes. How
Yeah,
about that?
that's what I just wanna be sure we show in the minutes that,
Okay, yeah,
We can absolutely do that.
great. So I officially resign.
Then can you repeat the nomination?
Pardon?
Can you repeat the nomination or for president?
Did somebody wanna?
Well, I'll nominate, go ahead, Ken.
I'll nominate, you can second
And
it
I'll second David Bryan.
before he changes his mind.
Wonderful, thank you.
So that all in favor of David's becoming the president, say signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed? Hearing none. David, congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you, David. And John, thank you for stepping forward and doing this.
How many members are we down from our total complement?
So the CAR-PFD is 7 members. We have currently 1 vacancy. And then when John, his term expires in March, we will have 2 vacancies. Yeah, so that we will be actively recruiting. They are 2 district-wide representatives.
Last thing I'll just note too is in your packet, you do have an administrative description of board positions too, that you can take a look at that outlines the role of the president and then also the secretary treasurer. And so Alyssa, you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so in the packet, there are some highlights to that administrative document that are highlighted in, I believe, a red font, but it just shows some additional edits that were made to kind of streamline and update the descriptions more holistically to what is actively reflected as part of those duties. So that those changes are highlighted for you all to see there. No action is needed by the board to adopt them or anything. This is an administrative document just to kind of help guide and offer some perspective for the board members. Any questions?
So when it comes to officers, didn't you all, by studying the documents, determine that we don't have to elect them each annual meeting? They're elected until they're changed.
That is
or the
correct.
term.
So the election of officers will follow the member through their term. So if they're reappointed to a new term, I would recommend that a new election take place. But the officer position will follow you until your term expiration. So you do not need to make.
So based on that, we don't have to
need to do
re-elect
Ken.
the secretary.
That is
treasurer.
correct, yes. Thank you, Ken.
So I believe we're adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you, John.
Thank you.